So that should be fine. What I quickly want to go do is let me just add a chat box quickly. I can do that without anybody seeing anything, so that's fine. Let's go to Streamlabs quickly. So if anybody could just give me a quick shout out just to let me know what the sound is like. Because I was having a little bit of sound issues with the mic, with the settings or whatever, but it seems like it should be better now. I was having this weird little funky background type of sound when I was talking. So anybody could give me a little bit of word about how it goes, I would appreciate it. So just let me know. I think I can see you all. You all should be able to see me, etc. Okay. So yeah, so this will be installment number 3, I think. Yeah, or third lesson in the Middlegames. Oh, that reminds me. Maybe I can. It doesn't matter. Whatever. I should actually do that beforehand, but anyway. Okay, so if someone, well, actually, I can do it myself, I guess. Huh? Well, I can't check, but I can do the chat thing. So, okay, so let's continue. Our next position comes from a game between Jan Verle and Erwin Liami from the Netherlands. Okay, I mean, obviously this book was written by some Dutch dude, so it makes sense that a lot of the games come from Dutch players. Okay, but this is a nice instructive game, so let us continue here. Okay, the opening apparently is not that important, really. Follows a line that has been played quite a bit already. So we have a transposition into the exchange variation where we give up the pawn on c4. So e4 is played, b5 protecting the pawn, e5, h6, bishop, h4, g5, knight takes, pawn takes, bishop takes, and knight bd7. So this has been played quite a bit before. It's a tricky question of who is really better in this position. Okay. I'm assuming that'll work. We did add that, did I not? Let me just have a quick look at my screen here. Everything should be fine. Okay. Well, hopefully you guys are here. If there is anybody in the chat, maybe just give me a shout out just to let me know what the sound is like. I would love to know. Let me close that. I'm assuming the chat works. I have to assume things now. It's like, oh, terrible. Let me just see something. Okay, that's fine. That's fine. Okay, anyway. So after knight bd7, g3 gets played, obviously. The bishop on g2 is very good there. Bishop b7 to counteract and play c5 eventually. Bishop g2. Queen b6 to protect the bishop on b7. So all of these moves just make logical sense. You know, there's nothing fancy here. We now finally have to take the piece, of course, because the queen is not in the pin anymore. Castle long side, castle short side, bishop h6 to get rid of that bishop. Bishop e3 instead. He wants him to solidify, or not solidify, strengthen his center if you play bishop takes e3. So c5 instead. Pawn takes c5, knight takes c5, bishop takes c5, queen takes c5, bishop takes, king takes, queen f3 check, and queen c6. So this has all been played before. This is pretty, pretty deep already. And then after a move like white plays knight e4 and then rook d4 to attack the knight and get his rooks doubled on the d file. Rook e1 gets played, and he doubles his rooks, and this is pretty much a position that has had quite a bit of play before. So a game, apparently it was a blitz game, but a game that was played before in this between Ivanchuk as white and Pickett as black. White played, let me just see here, white played h4 in this position. And after rook 8 to d5, so that rook just plants on d5, which is a nice square for the rook, and obviously blocks any diagonal issues like this. And it also protects c5 square as well, so the knight doesn't have anything funky. Rook e2, a5. So black wants to start using his pawn side majority here against this side. I should just keep an eye on the chat, of course, as well. Then after a5, just see what happened next. Rook a to e1. Okay, protecting his knight. b4. I mean, these pawns are really just coming, aren't they? King h2. Getting the king out of any danger zone there. King b6. I mean, you know, if black can start making moves like that, then he must have really good position, because look at the control he has. He has the control over this whole file. No problems. His king is completely safe. So black has complete control over the queen side, whereas white obviously has the king side. And after king b6, queen g4 was played. Now black played bishop d2 apparently. But after c3, so he should have played c3. Pawn takes c3. Pawn takes c3. Rook c2. Bishop d2. Rook b1 check, and rook b5. Black would be in perfectly good shape here. Okay, so this is something that should have been played. I am not entirely sure what was the result of the game between Ivanchuk and Pickett, but it doesn't really matter. Okay, so let's go back after rook here. Yeah, so here Jan Werle played rook e2, which apparently is an improvement on the Ivanchuk game. Okay, he slows down his own pawn march and starts focusing on fixing his issues first. He also has this lovely idea, which I'll show you in a little bit. Okay, so black still plays rook d5, of course. It still makes complete sense. Has really good control over everything here, and is protected by a pawn. Okay, so it makes complete sense to put the rook on d5. Now white plays a3, so he's trying to restrict the pawns already. Let me just quickly stop here, go back 2 moves again, just like that, and we quickly just say replace, because I just want to show you again, like we have been doing, we look at the pawn structures. Okay, so one of the big things that we have to note here, of course, is that black has the 3 pawns on the queen side versus only the 2 of ours, okay? And we have the pawn majority on the other side of the board. And we are actually a pawn up, aren't we? But this pawn does look a little sickly with pieces on the board still. Okay, so we have the 3 pawns on this side, and we also do have a pass pawn. This pass pawn can just run. So if this was an endgame, if white had to play right now, he immediately wins the game. He can't just push, actually. He doesn't play h4, he plays king f1 in order to be able to stop the pawn, because you don't have time to stop my pawn. So I am just able to play king f1 and get into the square. If there's any of you who doesn't know yet what a square is here, a square just means you count the amount of squares. Let me do it nice and clean for you. You look at how many moves the pawn needs to move, then you add it on the other side, and you can just draw a little square. Okay, now if the king can get into the square, it means he can stop the pawn. Very simple. Okay, as long as he can stop the pawn, and now of course we can do the same here. Here we can go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Let me just get rid of this square quickly here, just so I can show you. Then we can go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Sorry, not that one. There. Okay, and we can draw a square again. I am very inaccurate today. There we go. So we can draw a square again. Okay. So in order for the black king to be able to stop this pawn, it needs to be able to get in the square, which it cannot. So let's look at something like king f1. King goes here, h4. Now you can see it's got 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. Sorry. You have to just do it. Yeah, 4. Yes. Okay, so now the black king can get into the square, it seems, does it not? But you'll see what the problem is. Problem is that this square is not accessible for the king. Okay, so let's look at something like that. Pawn push there, and pawn push. Now you can see that the king cannot get to any of those squares. So technically the king can get into the rule of square, but he does not have the g7 square to be able to get in there. Okay, so let's go back. So it was just to show you the pawn endgame again. Now, what we should look at, of course, in this pawn endgame is what is really going on here from an endgame point of view. Okay, now we can see that these two pawns are really quickly coming down the board here. Okay, so that is something to look out for, obviously, even with pieces on the board. Okay, black has an easy 2 pawns that he can create as a pass pawns if you're not careful. So this pawn can also become a pass pawn if you're not careful. White obviously have this pass pawn that's just going to go. So in an endgame, most of the times, white should have the advantage here, depending on how far these pawns are advanced. Because of course, with the domination of the d file for black in the actual position, we can't bring our king closer. Okay, so other than that, there's no real good squares here. I don't really see nice outpost squares here. D3 is a nice outpost square, but we only have a bishop and it's a dark square bishop, so not really. So outpost doesn't seem to play a big role here. The other big thing is definitely this diagonal. This diagonal should be noted as an interesting thing to see, and you will see why. Okay, let's go back. Let me just save all that. Let's go back. Let's get back to our game. And after a3, what happened? Why can't I play a3 apparently? Okay, so a3 gets played, and you will see what the idea is in just a little while. I can already, I kind of feel, no, I don't think I've seen this game before, but I can already get the feeling for what he's going to do, because everything here is congested. So he's going to try and find a way in with his queen. That is what he needs to do, to get his queen to the king side. So, okay. What happened now? Go away. Okay. So they say here in the book, they say a3, with this deep strategical thought, Verle intends to restrict the black pawn majority, of course. At the same time, he would prefer to keep the rook on the a file. The reason for this will surface much later. Okay. So a5, h4. So, okay, so Ivanchuk obviously is now, it's the same as Ivanchuk, but he has weaved some refinements into the play. So he just says that it's the same as Ivanchuk's idea with h4 now, but okay, he has a little bit of a funky idea, and we'll see it now. So after b4, which apparently is not such a great move, because it opens up the a file, and you're going to see why this is going to become a bit of an issue. Of course, I mean, king safety is the key factor here in the end, isn't it? So, so after that, before we obviously just take it because we want to open up that file. So takes, and king h2. Okay, so we have kind of like the same setup here as in the Ivanchuk game as well, except here we have the obvious rook on the a file still. Okay, so now I'm going to stop here. Actually, let's make black's move. Well, does it really matter what black play? Yeah. So the king obviously on h2 is very safe. Okay, so now it becomes again, as always, now we start looking at the pawn structure again and we go, okay, well, white's a pawn up. Okay, black does have this 2 pawns here, but the issue is that the pawns are in front of his king. So king safety becomes now the main priority of this game, is king safety now. Okay, this king is extremely safe. So, just barking on that, we know that this king, he looks okay for now, but he could get into a lot of trouble if we can occupy the a file with major pieces. So he plays king b6, and now I think this is where we need to stop and take note of what's going on here. So we want to take over the a file. How are we going to accomplish this? We need to get more pieces in there. There's nowhere to go to right now in the a file. Well, rook a2 maybe. How do we, okay, so there's this idea, okay. I mean, logic just dictates that rook a2, queen h1, queen a1 gets the queen onto the king side. That could be quite devastating. He has to be very careful. So queen h1 maybe now? With this really cute idea of just swinging around. The knight, of course, defends d2, which is really important, so that the rooks can't penetrate onto the second rank. Okay? Let's have a look if I am right here. I've seen something similar to this. This is why the idea is not so foreign to me. Okay, I understand that I want to get my pieces on the king side. You know, this is Carlsen did this in that blitz game against Vasily Grav as well. You know, with his rook h1 move and then king f1 and rook g1. You know, so it's, you know, if you just think about these things logically, then it doesn't become that hard to try and find it. Okay, so queen h1 is the correct move. Yes. So we're going to play queen h1 on the board, and I'm just going to have a look at what they say. This is the key move for the entire concept that Berle had devised when he played his 23rd move, which was a3. This is a suitable moment to take a closer look at the position. Okay, what's it all about actually? The knight on e4 is the binding agent, yes, okay. In our defense, of course, of the second rank. It seizes squares in the enemy camp as well, okay. It obviously attacks c5 and b6, d6 as well, okay. And it defends us the d2 square and also f6. Okay, what else? It also restricts the push c3 as well. So it's a very, very strong knight. Okay, and of course the knight can't be attacked by the bishop, which is really important to note as well. This is why I in general prefer knights over bishops. Of course it depends on the position. But in a position like this one, the knight is beautiful. If he were to play something like rook e5, then just f3 would probably be the move. Guess we don't have to do anything about it yet. Or maybe we do, hey. Yeah, just f3. Just f3, of course. That should be fine. Maybe not, huh? Maybe there's rook d2 ideas. I don't know. But anyway, so rook e5 is maybe a possibility of being played. Okay. They say here, Jan Verle told me that before this tournament he had worked through Nimzowicz's book, My System. You see. A lot of people have this like, oh, my system is crappy. My system is maybe sometimes a little bit either too simple or too complicated, but it is a good book on just the basic concepts of the Steinitz elements. Okay. If you guys don't know what the Steinitz elements is, I can't help you. I'm just joking. But, okay, in the previous game as well, we looked at things here as well. We looked at a little mantra or a little list of things to look at. Maybe I can find that for you real quick. Let me just go back up here. I don't think it was too far back up. Here we go. Nope, it was still a bit further back. It was just like things to look at. There we go. What is the material balance? So we know white is a pawn now. Okay, so what's the first thing we want to look at? Are there any threats? Black has no current threats, so we can obviously continue on with our plan. How is the king safety doing? So this is where the big one comes in. With the queen h1 idea, we have the doubling on the a file idea to be able to play against the king safety of black. Okay, pawn structure we looked at. The pawn structure is significant mainly for the endgame here. Okay, and then we obviously looked at then we look at the smaller things that comes with the pawn structure, the open diagonals, the outposts, and the center, and obviously files as well. So files, diagonals, outposts, and the center. So here, if you look at all that, black has control over the center, which is good, okay? But there is the beautiful open A file, which we now have control over as well. So, and the D file turns out to be quite useless to him right now. He's not doing anything with the D file because whatever, our knight is protecting the d2 square, so he can't come in. Okay, black is controlling the center, so we looked at that. Strong squares we looked at for this knight. This knight is protecting the d6, the c5, the c3, the f6, and the d2 square, so really nice knight. And then who has more space and on what side of the board? So technically black has more space on the queen side where his king is, but that's not necessarily a good thing, because more space can also mean more holes. Okay, so let's scroll all the way back. I have the book open here next to me, obviously, on my screen, I mean. Okay, let's go down, let's go down, let's go down. Let's just see what else he says here. Okay, so my system, and he had been especially inspired by the chapter on overprotection. Okay, so overprotection In the spirit of Nimzovich, the strongest piece on the board needed to be protected so as thoroughly as possible, which would be the knight. So obviously, if rook d to e5 with f3, okay. Yeah, so like I just said, if rook e5 gets played, then f3 gets played. I was just, oh, of course we can't play that. Never mind. Maybe. I was looking at rook d2 as a crazy move in between it there. Because if you play knight takes, then rook takes e2 check and you're done. If you play rook takes, then bishop takes, knight takes, and then rook check on e2 and takes the knight. So I was looking at this as a variation. Okay, so then they continue on here with the f3 pawn so that he will be able to meet the possible threat of f3. This would give, that's why he also plays his queen to h1 as well, so he can have this move f3. Okay, just scroll down. I talk a lot here in the book here. The queen. Okay, the queen move has yet another purpose as well. The devious queen h1, queen b1, queen a2 has suddenly become possible as well, and with it, white will suddenly be able to harass the black king. Another merit of queen b1 is also protecting the knight on e4. just random, but you know they just mention it obviously as well. Okay, remarkably enough, this idea in combination with the maneuver queen h1, queen b1 was also found in no time by the 14-year-old talent Quentin Ducarmon. Ducarmon. Why does that surname sound familiar? He's a Dutch player, but you know, anyway. Okay. Cha 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 cha. They give us a couple of variations of moves that you know we could play sharp stuff, but I mean queen h1 just makes complete sense for the position. So we don't need to go look at all of that, do we? Maybe we do. No, it's a bunch of variations on knight g5. I wouldn't play knight g5 on principle. You know what I mean? Like, why would I go and make things messy? I prefer the obvious, just the queen h1 idea. Yeah, b3 was maybe an idea as well. I would have thought about playing b3, possibly. Just quickly see something. I want to see if you know the stream is fine, and I hope the sound is fine. Nobody's talking to me. Nobody cares about me. Anyway. So okay, so after queen h1, they give a bunch of variations. We go on and we go on and we go on and we go on. And then there is some moves here, maybe. Okay, so rook a5 gets played. So obviously black here is starting to feel the pressure. He's not happy about the a file, so he tries to contest for it. Okay. But now, of course, he gives up his central position on the board. So let's say we take, he takes. Now f3 makes sense, of course, because we just want to protect that knight and make sure that we have this beautiful overprotection of that knight, because this knight is dominating this bishop. Okay? And king b5 was played. Now it is our move. Like that. Let me just itchy and scratchy show. Let me just pop on the chat as well here. Okay, so now it is white to play. It would appear that there might be something here now. Ooh. This could get dirty. If queen a1, I guess it's not threatening anything right now, huh? Center, okay. Let's focus on the center maybe, rather. What about queen g1? Because with queen g1, we also have the flip around to queen a7, if he's not careful. So queen g1 looks like an interesting move. I have no idea if my chat box is working. Maybe I should test it real quick, huh? Luckily you guys can't see anything I do in the background. This is why I like using this. So let me just pop onto, oh, it's a different browser. Let me just open up a new window whilst you guys are thinking, or I am thinking as well in the background of my head as well. Let me just pop onto Twitch quickly. Just want to see if the chat is active. I've got to be careful because I'm going to try and play now as well. I'm going to play my own stream, in my stream. Let me just chat real quick. It's going to try and play. Okay, let me just do that real quick and see if it picks up here. Yeah, okay, so it's fine. Let me close it then. It's alright. Cool. Okay, so at least the chat is active. So yeah, so I'm still looking for a move here. I mean, maybe Queen G bleh, is too slow. Queen G1. Maybe you can play E5? Rook C2 comes to mind as well here. Hi, Alvin. So this seems to be the critical position. We've done everything right so far. Maybe we don't have to do anything. Maybe, okay, maybe not. I don't like, I was looking at the move of G4, but maybe Bishop F4 is not so nice. Not so kind, my friends. I mean, it might not matter because we just, play King G2 and shove the pawn. They're runners, but he does have C3 as an option. This is why I was also looking at Rook C2 as an option as well. Queen G1, maybe E5 is what I was thinking for him. Queen A1, of course, is always still there as well, because now we have ideas of B3, which is nice. With, the Queen A4 check options as well. So here we just have to find the right thing. Queen A1 does look entertaining. So I like the B3 threat. It is nice. I do like the B3 threat. Threat. Queen A1, but if he plays Queen A6 is what I was slightly worried about. That is a bit too slow. Looking at crazy variations, queen takes and knight c5 check, king comes back, knight takes e6. Crazy variations. If we can swap off the two pawns on the queen side, then obviously we win on the king side easily as well. Maybe queen g1 if he plays e5, then queen a1. This is interesting. Okay, let's okay, in the current position, yeah, obviously, so we have a board here to think about. Okay, so rook a1 I like, but then just what do we play against queen a6 is the real question. It's the only real question we have here. Do we have time? Queen a1, queen a6. Do we just take it? And then maybe play g5, g4? Because so far we have stopped the pawns. Pawns can't go anywhere. And if he plays bishop f4 check after that, then king g2, and he still has nothing. We still have great control over this square and this square with the knight. So he can't promote a pawn or anything like that. So I think queen a1. I'm just trying to see what if he plays queen a6. Do we just trade off? There is maybe takes, and knight g5. Surely the endgame is winning. Oh no, we have to be careful of c3 again, so maybe not. But I was looking at just g4 as well. Bishop check here, king goes to g2, and we just play g5, g4, g5, g6. What's he going to do about it? I'd love to see what he's going to do about it. Maybe he plays bishop here. Okay, bishop b2 apparently. Can he maybe sacrifice maybe, huh? Is that the game plan? g2, can we maybe take here? Is that maybe the idea? Here, here. Here check, king goes here and g6. If he goes b3 now, we can play maybe even knight takes here, knight takes c3. He takes, we take. Now the problem is that these pawns are going to queen. If he goes check here, king goes here, if he takes it, there's... Oof. There is g7 maybe? Rook goes back this way, pawn. I mean, how does he stop all these pawns? Can't stop the pawns. I think that's winning. If he plays here, check here to obviously to go check there. King. Why would we go there? Okay, I guess the same thing applies. King here. If he stops it, then just pawn push, because he now can never leave the G file. So this endgame again is winning, it seems. So maybe that endgame is just winning if he plays queen a6. Let's have a look at what the book says we should or should not do. Okay, so queen a1 is the move. Why manage to lure the black pieces even further out of their best positions? He introduces a few nasty threats with b3, obviously. Okay, queen a6 was played. Let's just look at something else. So they say if he plays bishop f8, okay, then queen a7, of course, attacking here and attacking here. This is why I also wanted my queen on a1. Extra couple of threats there. And this looks devastating. I mean, rook d8, queen takes f7, and everything is just falling apart anyway. I mean, these pawns are going to queen. The queen side, the king side pawns do win it for us fairly easily, it seems. Okay, then they look at queen b7 maybe instead. Queen b7. Apparently knight c3. What? Say what? Okay, because if you take, then your rook is hanging, and I am threatening this check on b2 as well. Okay, that makes sense. So now you're just in trouble. Winning material, blah 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 blah, yada yada yada. Okay, and then there's another option here. We go rook d8, new variation. Let's have a look at what continues. Your queen a7 still makes sense to attack f7. Queen a7, rook d8, queen check, queen b6, queen h8. Now, how's that for nasty? Just attacking the bishop. Okay, queen h8, bishop e3, and queen e8, apparently. Just pinning the knight. Ah, I see. Because now the problem is, of course, is that the queen is now stuck defending the bishop. So that's no fun. No fun at all. What was wrong with bishop c1 maybe? I mean, one has to look at the variations, of course. Maybe just queen check here. Because now the problem, of course, is if rook d5, we still just take here. And I mean, where's the king gonna go? King goes here. Maybe we can just play rook c2. Now this pawn's gonna fall as well. So that seems fairly logical. So okay, bishop c1 doesn't do much for his position. Okay, let's go back. So queen a6 was played. Aha! So my idea was in here somewhere, I think, because maybe now we just play queen g1. So slight difference, change it around a little. But now if we play queen g1, then we have that knight c3 idea again. If he plays queen b6 to defend, then we have the knight c3 idea again, with the threat of attacking the rook and obviously just attacking the threatening rook b2. So look, something like queen g1, if he plays, we just make that a new main line. If he plays here, then we play knight check here. Do we not? I guess his king can just move, maybe. Yeah, maybe he can just move his king, huh? So maybe it's not that bad for him. King a6. So after queen b6, what do we play is the question. Queen b6. There's no knight d6 ideas. Doesn't exist. I do like knight c3. Just trying to see how we follow it up. Ooh, pretty. Knight c3, king a6, knight a4, knight here. Now the queen has to protect this. Queen d8. Wow, that looks a little desperate, but okay. I would have thought maybe he tries to keep protection rather. Like queen d6 maybe? Just trying to find a way for us to get in here. Now we have to watch out for rook d2 ideas as well. It's a bit of a nuisance. So I'm not sure about this. I don't like that very much. So the question is just after queen b6, what do we play? That is the question. I'm looking for these fork ideas, where we can play queen takes, check, and then forking. Okay, wait a minute. So knight c3 check, king goes a6, then what about queen a1 check? Now, can he block with the queen? It's the first question always to ask. Can he? Block with the queen, huh? Yeah, this doesn't seem like that scary. Just doesn't seem that scary. Anybody have any ideas here? Because this is the tough position. This is obviously, we need to find something here. I mean, knight g5 is possible as well, but I don't like moving that knight. That knight is pretty. It's a pretty knight. It's pretty. It's pretty. Um, I really want to make knight c3 work. Probably missing something stupid, but that's not the point. That is not the point. Okay, well, I don't spend a lifetime on this. Let's have a look. So after queen g1, okay, queen b6, yeah. So apparently rook d5 was better, but you see, I mean, this is now just slow play chess now. Now apparently just king g2. Now I understand because now of course we can play g4 without having to worry about the tempo bishop f4. Okay? So king g2 is what is played here. That's a very quiet move. Rook c2 I also looked at with the obvious ideas. So he says now rook d3. Okay, we know that the endgame is better here for us, especially if we can trade off the queenside pawns. So apparently he did play rook d3, and obviously we trade. Now g4, of course. Again, like I said, this is why we played king g2, so we can avoid this as a check. Okay, oopsie, sorry. Okay, what did he play? He played bishop f4 and g5. So of course in this endgame again, we're still putting a lot of pressure on him, and we just threaten to play g6. It's very hard to stop these pawns. Yeah, it's really hard. That knight is still protecting so many good squares here. Yeah, so the big thing here is just to note that white's pawn mass is just much stronger than black's one. So he played c3, b takes, and rook c2. Okay, again, knight is protecting the square. Very important for the knight to protect this square. So now there's no more checks. So now the pawn is going to die. It's going to die. What now? Bishop e5, then we just play h5. You know what I'm saying? We just keep jamming those pawns. So this is the position. He played bishop d2 instead. But same thing. What if we just play g6 now? Can we play g6 immediately? Maybe not. Maybe we can save it. Then still. We could also just go king f2 and king e2. No, okay, yes, rook e3 check is a nuisance move. But we could also just play h5, because the knight protects on g5, actually, yeah. So h5 looks like a logical next move. Okay, he did play king f2 first. Hey. Apparently, okay, of course, because now he's just threatening to play bishop takes. Okay, no, then he can play pawn takes. Yummy. Okay, so why there? Why there? Well, he's just closer. I guess he is closer to the pawn now as well. So now if the pawn gets to d2 in an eventual all swap of position, then king e2 will, obviously just keep the pawn in check. Okay, let's have a quick look at how this finishes. He plays king b5 and then h5, of course. I mean, h5 can just be played, because you can't sacrifice anything. Possible variation, they say king b4, g6, rook d8 apparently. Yeah, okay, rook d8, g7. Of course, now we know that rook can never leave anywhere, and we are threatening to just take the bishop. And then the pawn endgame. Remember, we had the exact same pawn endgame. King b3, and we play rook takes pawn. We probably play rook takes d2. Rook takes c3. Okay, same thing. Rook takes c3, bishop takes, king takes, and h6. Because again, remember, this pawn endgame is just winning for us versus the rook. He has no way of surviving this. Cool. So that was the position for today. The really, really nice little maneuver of the queen getting out of the way. There's a couple of reasons. So this is all about overprotection with the pawn structure. So we have the open file here. This knight is really well placed, so we want to make sure that it stays there by playing f3. So we need to find a good place for the queen to go. That is the question. Where does the queen go? And the queen wants to be on this a file. So that's why after the beautiful king h2, moves his king up, and queen h1. It's a really nice idea with the idea of queen b1, queen b2, and obviously starting to hit on this a file. So, which obviously white could not, black did not want to allow. So he starts trading off pieces, but then of course he loses the grip of the center that he has. So yeah, that was it for our middle game lesson for today. In an hour's time, I will be doing a bit of playing for a change, you know. Maybe I'll play 2 games of 15-minute, 10-second increments. See if we can find any decent opponents. You know, obviously I want some strong opponents so that we can start testing some stuff, you know. Then we're going to be talking in the game. We're going to be looking at things that we are practicing right now. So we're going to look at the pawn structures. We're going to obviously just look at the 7 things that I mentioned earlier. I'm going to mention them again real quick. I think I can do it off the top of my head. So the first thing we do is we look at the material. If it's equal, that's fine. Then we look at immediate threats. If there's nothing like that, then we look at king safety. Obviously that, you know, has a factor in it. And then we start looking at the pawn structure. And the pawn structure, there's a few things we want to look at in the pawn structure. We want to look at pawn majorities. We want to look at who's controlling the center. We want to look at any open files. We want to look at any open diagonals. And we want to look at nice knight outpost squares. Okay. What was after that? Because, I mean, like, we never really focused much on everything else, huh? Let me just pop back down all the way. Oh, then it becomes about pieces. They also in the pawn structure they also look at, you know, who's got space where, and you know, obviously, you know, yeah. So who's got space where, and then which pieces are active and which are not. Because of course, in a lot of positions, when you don't have, when you're not quite sure what to do, improving your worst piece is definitely a good way to go. Okay, so that is where we will stop for today with the middle game stuff. You guys have noticed that there is a donation bar, I hope. I am going to release a little donation video soon. Hopefully we can make that thing go a little bit all over the place just to get more people to come and follow and come and support the channel. The donations thing, believe me, the plan is to use a lot of the money to obviously improve the show. To get more streamers, to bring in GMs, to, I want to create donation stuff as well, you know, for the donators, like invite donators onto the show. There's a fun little thing that I want to do where I want to get donators to nominate something they want a streamer to do, you know, like something wacky. I mean, obviously as long as it's not too crazy, then it's fine. Then we can do stuff like that. Okay, so I will see you guys in an hour. And then we will do some playing and we'll see how that goes. Thank you guys. I'll see you in a bit.